Peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi al-tahirin wa ashabihi al-mukhlisin wa tabi'in lahum bi khairan wa isan ila yawm ad-din wa alina ma'ahum bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Our beloved brothers and sisters in Islam and in humanity, I've been fortunate for a little over a decade to be the executive director of the Michigan chapter of CAIR, the Council on American-Islamic Relations. And normally, I come before you and I have a pre-written speech. This afternoon, I have decided to have more of a little conversation with you instead of a speech. I came to this city, the city of Detroit, 20 years ago in the month of April. After being discharged honorably from the United States Navy, as actually I worked in the administrative and the legal departments on my ship, the USS Theodore Roosevelt. In my 20 years of being here, when I first put everything in my Chevrolet Corsica, my gray, pitiful Chevrolet Corsica, and drove up here with about half of my clothes, I did not ever expect that the United States of America, the country in which I wore the uniform for, that actually race relations a decade or 20 years later would actually go backwards from when I served in the US Navy from 1994 to 1998. That was the last thing on my mind when I came to this community. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that when we look at the news and seen the events that have transpired since we were here in this location last year, the continued shooting of unarmed black men, white supremacists taking off their sheets and marching openly in Charlottesville, North Carolina, to just recently in Rochester Hills, a 14-year-old boy being shot at, going to a door to knock, simply asking for directions. I did not foresee this. I did not foresee things getting worse in these United States of America. So I'm not painting a gloomy picture, but it is to say that we as American Muslims, and not just black folks who are Muslims, but all of us who are American Muslims in this room, be you first generation, second generation, third generation Muslims who come from South Asia, from the Arab world, from Bosnia, that this is a socio-political reality that we live in right now in the year 2018 under the 45th president of these United States of America, Donald J. Trump. Within this narrative, let me first say that the Muslim community, American Muslims, are being treated like a fifth column in our country, as if we are un-American, that we have second-class citizenship, and that there's a type of de facto loyalty test that we have to take to be halfway considered as being authentic Americans, and not just from individuals, even from the Oval Office. In 3 days, on April 25th, there will be oral arguments at the United States Supreme Court arguing against Donald Trump's Muslim ban. A ban seeking to stop Muslims from immigrating from certain countries, but not only just immigrants, refugees from the two worst humanitarian crisis areas in the world right now, from Yemen and Syria. May God help our brothers and sisters in Yemen and Syria. Oral arguments will be starting. As CAIR Michigan Executive Director, I am proud to have had my name listed on the initial lawsuit against the Trump administration's Muslim ban, and those arguments will be taking place in 3 days in Washington, D.C. Myself, along with our beloved sister who's running for Congress, Rashida Tlaib, are two of the plaintiffs on that lawsuit, on one of the lawsuits that was filed by the National Office of the Council on American Islamic Relations, led by the National Litigation Director, Sister Lena Masri, who used to be CAIR Michigan staff attorney. So we have our names on this lawsuit, not because I'm an immigrant. I'm an African American. My family has been here for over 300 years. But it is to have my name on a lawsuit as an American Muslim to fight and defend the Constitution of these United States of America, which I swore a sacred oath to defend while I served in the United States Navy. That's why my name is on the lawsuit. We recently were involved, and we've been involved, in protesting against the removal of DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, that has literally set in motion the ability to split up families and deport tens of thousands of people who grew up, raised in America, played by the rules, graduated from school, committed no high crimes, no felonies, are now in the process of being deported, and many have been deported back to lands that they have never lived in with any type of consciousness, much less being able to speak the language of those countries they're being deported to. And this is not just a Latino issue. There are many Muslim families of people who were DACA recipients that was taken away by President Trump, and there have been Muslims who have been rounded up and have been deported, including from our state, the state of Michigan. So when we went to Washington, D.C. not long ago, along with CAIR National Director Nihad Awad, with Sheikh Omar Suleiman, with Sister Linda Sarsour, and we sat in front of Paul Ryan's office asking for human decency, asking for legislation so that families would not be ripped apart. And I was the first one that was arrested sitting in front of Mr. Paul Ryan's office. I take that arrest and being handcuffed and being put in jail not as a shame, but a badge of honor for standing for the Constitution of the United States of America and for human dignity. It's not a shame, because Ms. Rosa Parks was arrested, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested, many others much greater than me. Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, they were arrested too. These are the footsteps that we try to walk in as CAIR officials and representatives standing for civil rights and for human rights. It says my time is up, but we started late. We started early, so I'm going to keep on talking for a moment. We're actually ahead of schedule. Alhamdulillah for a Muslim event starting and actually being ahead of schedule. Alhamdulillah. Let me conclude with a couple of things. Many of you may have seen in the news last week, CAIR Michigan filed 2 civil rights complaints regarding issue in our own backyard. And we know the people personally who were involved. So I want to tell this to you as a story. It's a young woman, environmental justice activist, African American and Muslim. At her home, a disgruntled person comes by her home, begins to ram her car into the car in which she has her young baby in the car. She backs the car up after running to the car of the Muslim woman and then tries to hit her mother. The Muslim woman has a concealed weapons license, but did not have a single bullet in the gun. So to stop the person from potentially killing her mother or injuring her child, she pulled out her legal firearm and brandished it towards the car that was threatening the life of her family. This young lady later gets arrested and convicted for felony branch of firearm because stand your ground didn't work for the black Muslim sister. She's in prison. We believe wrongfully convicted, 8 months pregnant, in jail, solitary, and being fed pork, even after we've asked for religious accommodations for her. They're feeding her pork, so she's lost weight while 8 months pregnant. She's not being given a scarf so that she can use to pray for hijab. Number 3, she asked for a Quran. They refused to give her a Quran. They gave her the Bible. This is why CAIR Michigan filed those civil rights lawsuits on behalf of this Muslim sister. Because whether she is justly convicted or unjustly convicted, she deserves human rights, and she deserves an organization that's going to stand for her rights so that she is not treated inhumanely as a pregnant woman behind bars. These are the type of cases that we work on, brothers and sisters. There's not a lot of glory. The clients may not seem to be the most popular, but we stand upon these cases based upon principles, and we leave the results in God's hands. They're not in our hands, they're in God's hands. And we put our trust in our Creator who created this universe and put everything into motion. He's our protector. We're just trying to work to do what we believe is pleasing to Him. In conclusion, we have proactive programs. Our sister Aisha Noor, who stood before us, may Allah preserve her, is involved in anti-bullying work. Not just bullying for Muslim children in schools by students, but administrative bullying by staff and teachers who have anti-Muslim curriculum and even have double standard of how Muslim children in many districts are punished in comparison to non-Muslim children. We are working on this issue. We're working on proactive policy changes. We are filing lawsuits through our office and in conjunction with our national office. We are doing all this work as khidmah, or a service to the community, because CAIR Michigan is your community organization. With saying that, I am asking you for 2 things. First, your prayers, that Almighty God grants us with more wisdom and more resources for us to do our work on behalf of Michigan Muslims, but moreover, on behalf of civil rights of all people who reside in these United States of America. Number 1. Number 2, we need your financial support. As I say every Friday around this time and during Shahr Ramadan, freedom is not free. There's a price to pay. You pay now or you pay later, but we all have to pay. So please be generous in giving your sadaqah. We are a zakat-eligible organization. Many of the clients that we help are indigent and cannot pay for attorney or legal services, but every person who comes through the door of CAIR Michigan, we give them help, whether they're Arab or non-Arab, whether they're Sunnah or Shia, whether they have money or whether they have no money. We never turn a single client away that comes for us with legal services that relates to Islamophobia and civil rights, so we need your support. Jazakumullahu khairan wa salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.